There's Michi. Hey, first of all, couple things. First of all, look at the size of the screen. Notice that something is a little different this week, and I think it's very obvious. What you're seeing is it's called Michi actually sat down and figured out how to do the camera settings correctly. Now of course I am not centered. Let's see if we can get ourselves a little more centered. There we go. So those of you who are watching on 480, you'll still see my whole entire self in there. And if you're still watching on that kind of a screen, come on, get with the times. Good morning, it is the Michi, and today is November 7th, 2019. I hope you come join us. And I hope you post all kinds of questions in the chat. There is a chat here on YouTube. I welcome you to please post. And to please ask questions. We're going to get into a few things this week in our wonderful weekly meeting of the minds here. And I just wanted to... So we'll just talk about some various things. But for right now, let's do... okay, also, I forgot. It finally, several months ago, I put in an order at BSW. And, I've been ordering more stuff from BSW lately. Why? Why, Michi? Why have you been doing this thing? It's like, okay... and it's like, okay, so anyway, it finally came. We've been waiting for this for quite a while. Yes, it's the RODE PODMIC. So now when you are watching my videos and stuff, it's going to be interrupted by this boom coming out of the air here, and so that's what you get to deal with now here at the REC world. Yeah, we finally got it. Apparently RODE had them on back order for for a couple months because of BSW had them on back order because RODE, I guess RODE wasn't able to catch up, keep up with the demand, or something happened, but they finally came. This is a RODE PODMIC. It is a recent new product from RODE. It is I believe BSW is selling them right now for $99. So I'm pretty sure that the other places would be comparable. But so far, it's a good sounding microphone. I'm hoping that it sounds good. If I sound like I'm overdriving this thing or something, please tell me. Please tell me in the chat, or if I'm running too low. I don't know what my levels are like right now. So, I can see. We use just some tips. Some secrets of the trade here. We do use for the video streaming. We do use OBS Studio. And we got a pretty good hookup here. I wish I had a mirror or something that I could show you. Maybe I can turn this around. All right, we're gonna do something here. This is what I see. This is OBS Studio's multi-view function, so I can see everything that's going on right now. In the video streaming world of REC. That's pretty much what we've got going there, and so if I want to kick into Japanese news and so yeah, I can do that. So yeah, it's some pretty neat. We got some pretty neat stuff going here, and so you know, it's getting so much easier in this day and age to do video streaming, and and still, I mean, it's still something that is fairly new to me and fairly new to this, and we're trying our best. We're trying to improve. Plus, also, I needed a new studio mic anyway, and because you never know, I might have a radio station someday. I might have a radio show someday. Who knows? But if I do, I need to be ready. You never know when that filing window is going to come. You never know when somebody's going to say, "Hey, Michi, we know you got a CP. We love you so much that we're going to come out and we're going to lay the concrete and put the tower up for you. And we'll give you a couple of Scala CLFM antennas to point in certain directions, or whatever antenna the construction permit or the second adjacent waiver will require." I mean, come on. I know there's nice people out there. Just kidding, folks. I'm just having some fun this morning. Let's talk about renewals. Here's the current situation from Florida. As you can see, it still doesn't look good for a few of them out there. What are we short? We're short by 11. We have 11 that haven't filed in Florida. If they file now, they're at the point where they may get a forfeiture. And the forfeiture could be up to $3,000. We have seen the FCC work it down. We've seen one where they worked it down to $1,500. So, these are some of the things that we got to be careful of. We got to take into consideration. Now, we do have another filing deadline coming up right now for Georgia and Alabama. That filing deadline is on December 1st. Now, for those of you who are wanting REC to do your renewals, you can still put them in through the easy form. Go to recnet.com and click on the easy form. When you do the renewal, just keep in mind that I won't be getting to them until after November 16th. And I usually don't do renewals until after your last pre-file message is played. And after your last pre-file message is played, that's when we start doing the renewals, because so that way everybody knows what's going on. All right, and so that way when December 1st comes along, you'll be able to, with good conscience, be able to make your post-file announcement. Now, of course, the FCC is talking about changing the public notice rules, and actually the rules that they want to change them to, in some ways, are actually better. In some ways, they fall short. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. We do have a date change for the Federal Communications Commission open meeting. That was supposed to be on Tuesday, the 19th. They have moved it to Friday, the 22nd, still at 10:30 a.m. And barring any schedule conflicts here, we will carry it live. And there you can see all the items that are up for consideration right now on there for the November 22nd. Now, of course, any of these items between now and then could be adopted, and the FCC can still, they can still take action on it, and then when they do that, it removes it from the agenda. But those are the items right now on the agenda. As we get closer, you'll see more item. You'll see. Like I said, it may reduce. It won't increase, but it usually doesn't increase, but it will reduce if need be. Also, a reminder of sunshine. When you get up to about a week before the scheduled meeting, the FCC issues a sunshine notice, and when they do that, you are not allowed to even make ex parte presentations on any of the items, so you can't really even talk with staff or any decision makers about these items. I mean, if you want to talk to staff right now on, like, for example, all digital AM broadcasting, if you feel right now, I would only kick in if you are like a major stakeholder in the proceeding and you see something in there that is like way out in left field. And, and then if you do that, you do have to disclose it as an ex parte presentation. I had to do that. I did that in 1903. The NCE LPFM administrative NPRM that came out earlier this year, to put in there a alternate time sharing, a viable time sharing plan, to deal with, like, for example, what happened with Dub Lab in Los Angeles and stuff, and making sure that LPFM, that if we're going to do timeshares in LPFM, that we're not stacking points. We're not, getting people to conspire together to stack points. Although there is that kind of a proposal right now in the current NPRM. That's the only part of that NPRM 19.3 that I have any objections to, and I've been pretty quiet about those objections. But and especially with the fact that we have a lot less spectrum available right now than we did back in 2013, thank you translators. That it may not even come up as an issue, but still, timeshare agreements should be viable, and especially if the FCC is talking about allowing if a station drops out, for another station to come inserted right in there, they need to have some kind of a plan. They need to have some kind of a plan for that. Yeah, so let's see. The items that were discussed. That's one of them there. All digital AM broadcasting, and the ability for AM stations to voluntarily flash cut to HD. I'm not going to get into too many details about that. We talked a lot about this last week. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we can definitely talk about them. But those are the questions up for consideration. A lot of the chatter that we've been hearing about this, you've got the usual people that are saying, oh, it's going to bleed over other channels. Well, MA3 works a little differently. It is a narrower bandwidth than the HD hybrid, because you're not carrying a whole entire analog carrier. You're carrying a very thin unmodulated carrier, and that's what the FCC. That's what's going to be used for the power for the station. So if you have a 5 kilowatt station right now, you're going to have a 5 kilowatt unmodulated carrier, and then your digital sidebands will be suppressed at a lower power. And so people are continuing to say, why would you want to do this? And really, it's my opinion, it's the FCC's sneaky way of trying to do some way to more normalize AM translators, FM translators for AM stations, without violating the LCRA. The LCRA, the Local Community Radio Act, is really the only thing that's holding back the FCC from considering translators for AM stations to be primary. So, it's going to be interesting to see where this all goes. In my opinion, the best way to handle this is to phase in an extended FM broadcast band down to 76. We can add 60 channels of analog in that area, analog, digital, whatever they want to do in there. I mean, right now there's no public outcry for either an all digital AM or all digital FM service. And I really think that the main reasons to go AM digital would be is if you have a very strong translator, listeners, if you have a very strong AM translator audience, hang on. Today we are brought to you by Diet Coke. If you have a strong audience on your translator and not much on your AM station, and if the FCC is just trying to completely avoid the conversation of dumping the translator after going AM digital in footnotes, you know where they're going with this. And we really need to pack a lot of comments for those of you who are concerned about LPFM, who are concerned about more appropriate ways of using secondary spectrum. We need to make sure that the FCC knows that we won't have any part of that. If these stations want to go AM digital, then they need to use that. That needs to be their final solution. Final solution. Final solution. Need I say it anymore? If they go digital, there really needs to be a program in place to move off of using the dependence on the crutch translators, and then freeing up that spectrum for future community use. That's really the only thing that makes sense. And, you know, like I said, other than a band expansion, there's really no way you're going to be able to move all these AM stations onto FM. You can do it in Mexico. It works great in Mexico. It works great in some of Canada. But guess what? We are much more bunched up here. Thank you, Docket 8090. Thank you, 2003, Auction 83, Great Translator Invasion. There's, you know, a bunch of mistakes have been made over the years, and to put us in this spectrum glut. And now that we are, now we're really eating it right now. So, you know, so there you go. That's AM digital broadcasting. The other item that's up for consideration is the duplication of programming rule. Current rule, you know, bottom line is that under the current rules, two full service stations in the same band cannot duplicate their programming if at least 50%, if there's at least a 50% contour overlap of community contours, and that would be the 70 dB. Now, what they're saying is it's a 70 dB city grade contour for FM and the 5 millivolt per meter for AM. However, we had a very interesting decision come out here. Where is it here? It was the decision in I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Chehalis Valley Educational Foundation for the for an application to modify KACS-FM. It's currently, you can find the document currently on FCC Today, because it was a document from yesterday. But the question on there had to do with community coverage, and it had to do with the community coverage contour for a non-commercial station in the reserve band between 88.1 and 91.9. And see, down there, the community coverage requirements are different. In the commercial band, the community coverage requirement is the 70 dB contour, otherwise known as the city grade contour. However, and you pretty much have to cover 100% of this community of license within that 70 dB contour in the commercial world, although the FCC sometimes can be lax on that a little bit, just slightly, but that's really what they want. They want full 100% city grade coverage. Now, below 92, it's a little differently. Below 92, a station must cover, the community contour is considered the 60 dB contour, the regular service contour, and you own and an NCE station only needs to cover at least 50% of the land area or 50% of the population of the community, of the borders of the community of license, and that's how it works. So the question comes up here, and this is one of the things I'll be arguing in this upcoming proceeding, is that two NCE stations below 92, let's say two K-Love stations, where there is at least a 50% 60 dB overlap, they should not be allowed to duplicate. My opinion, though, is that the duplication rule should be extended in the commercial band to the protected contour. 60, 57 for B1, 54 for B. That's what it should be extended to. So two stations with overlapping service contours should not be allowed to duplicate their programming. We're starting to see more of that. And actually, I think there was an article the other day in Radio Insight or one of them that was talking about a simulcast somewhere. And the way I read it, I didn't run the contour maps, but it just looked like, from what I could see, it looked like a prohibited duplication. So I don't know what's going on there. So that's pretty much that's pretty much what we've got going on there. Okay, we have the other proceeding that's going on right now that we're actually taking comments for. Comments are due by November 18th, and that is the public notice rule. We talked about that in previous weeks. We won't get into too many details. But bottom line is that for existing LPFMs, it just means you're going to be running fewer announcements come renewal time. And, and if this rule gets changed between now and the time that your state comes up for renewal, then guess what? You're under the new renewal rules instead of the old ones. And you only have to run 4 announcements at all, period. And you won't have to run all this other nonsense that, that they're doing. But the big thing is that getting the newspapers out of the public notice requirements. In the past, LPFMs had not been required by regulation to follow the public notice rules, including putting ads in the paper when their new construction permits are accepted for filing. Unfortunately, there is a conflict with the Communications Act, which is the act of Congress. It's something that the FCC can't waive, and in that case, the FCC, the stations have to follow it. This is that mess that happened earlier this year with the renewals, where the audio division came out of the blue and just said, "Hey, LPFM, you have to do these public notices." And I said, "Okay, under what regulation? Because I don't have 733580 applying to me. How do I do this?" And they're like, "Well, just follow 733580." And I said, "Does that include for does that include for when we come up to the next window?" It's like, the attitude was, yeah, but I'm like, no, give us rules. Well, the rules are, there was already a proceeding going on when this thing happened back in May, when the renewals were starting to happen. I barged into that proceeding and filed a motion for leave to file late comments. I barged into that and said, "Hey, listen, I've got the audio division telling LPFM that they've got to do something, but we have no regulations to do it, and we need to have some regulations in there for LPFM. We need guidance for LPFM stations." Well, that's kind of happening with this, although LPFM is not specifically called out in this proceeding. The rules will, should apply across the board. And bottom line is that certain applications such as assignments, transfers, new LPFM stations, major changes during a window, those all have to be disclosed in public notice. And in the past, LPFMs didn't do it. And going forward, they're going to have to do it. The question is where can they do it? And right now, newspapers is the one. What they're doing is they're going to get rid of newspapers. They're going to go to websites. If you're an existing station, you already have a website, you can post it there. Over the air, more things will be done over the air. Right now, renewals are done over the air. Assignments and transfers will likely go over the air, in addition to maybe a website. So those are some of the things that we're working on. REC is working on comments right now in that proceeding, and one of the issues that we have with this proceeding is that in the websites they talk about, either local city government websites, they talk about quote unquote community bulletin board websites, whatever those are, and they also talk about using the State Broadcasters Association. Well, the way I see it is that a city government should not dictate what LPFM stations should and shouldn't be allowed to go on the air. So therefore, you're putting a city government in a position. You're putting them in a bad position, and you're letting them be the judge and jury of whether your station is worthy enough to go on the air. And I mean, other than dealing with like zoning regulations and stuff like that. But just the fact of the listing. Also, too, what about faith-based organizations? I see some city councils just completely avoiding this issue altogether, as not to get some First Amendment establishment clause issues going here. And then you've got then organizations that advocate for the separation of church and state and such will be coming to these city governments and saying, why are you listing churches, and especially if you're listing them free of charge, on your website as future LPFM stations and such? So yeah, I've got some issues with that. State broadcast. Let's talk about the community bulletin boards. Something similar. Anything like that, when I think of that, I think of azcentral.com in Phoenix. I think of like the Daily Times here in Delmarva. And guess what? That's the newspaper industry. And guess what? They're going to charge their captive prices. They are. They're going to charge those captive prices because they want to get that money back. And the third option they were talking about was using the website of a State Broadcasters Association. The problem with the State Broadcasters Association is that some of them are still very hostile to LPFMs. We saw that in 19193 with New Jersey. So, State Broadcasters Associations are not an option. So these are the things we're going to be working out. Give me a few days. If time comes up, I will do some talking points on there. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Hello, Joy. I see you on the comments there in the chat. And good morning from New York City, where you're at. And let's see what's happening here. So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in there. Also, please subscribe to the channel. We need the subscribers. We need to get it over certain numbers so we can get some good things going here. Let's talk about a dreaded subject, and that's EAS. Here's the information that we have right now so far on EAS. And now the FCC has given what they're calling a grace period. It's really, in many ways, it's the 60 days that you are allowed to have if your EAS malfunctions and you need to fix something. And we're going to be reaching that point here in a few days with the expiration of the certificates. The FEMA certificate is expiring on EAS units. And so in order to continue to get alerts through CAP, you need to get the new certificate. If your certificate goes out, you don't revise it, what will happen is that your ability to pick up through CAP will go away. You'll still be able to get your EAS alerts over the air, but you won't be able to get the cap alerts. However, the FCC considers the cap abilities to be part of your station readiness. So if you're not monitoring cap, you're out of compliance. So, normally when there's an EAS malfunction, stations have up to 60 days to fix the problem. They need to make sure that they log it. They make sure that they put in their station log that the EAS is not working in the right way, and that they go ahead and make the changes. Here's some information for 3 major manufacturers of EAS equipment. Digital alert systems, if you have a DASDEC, you can very easily download the new certificate and install it yourself. If you have version 3.1 or 4.0, there's no charge for this. So if you're on a DASDEC and you've got at least 3.1, you got a free ride. DASDEC has been pushing people to upgrade to 4.0 for some other future functionality. Now, there's going to be a time when 4.0 will be mandatory. So you want to make sure that you take a moment and eventually get that upgraded. I think they're charging $4.99 for that upgrade, but you don't have to do it right now. So get the fundraising started. If you're still on a DASDEC 3.1, get the fundraising started now, and start working towards allotting some budget to upgrade your DASDEC. On the Sage, it's a little different story for the Sage. On the Sage, you need to have revision 95 or greater. However, if you have a unit that was purchased after March 1st, 2018, and there's the serial number range, they will allow you to take Rev 95 at no charge. Otherwise, I think it's what, $390, was it $350? I think it is $350 for the Sage upgrade, and so yeah, if you've got that, that's what you got. And for the Gorman Redlich equipment, if you are using version 2.75 or older, you got to upgrade to a 2.76.3. That's a $180 upgrade. They will actually remotely install they'll install the update for you. If you have any other version of 2.76, then the .3 version with the new certificate is a no charger for that one. So that's what we've got there, and it's craziness. But we talked a lot about EAS in the proceeding and in the comments and in the reply comments of 19.3. I just want to make sure that everybody realizes is that I do support alerting. I do support the need for some form of emergency alerting locally and nationally. The problem is that LPFM is in some unique circumstances. LPFM, first of all, is decode only. So LPFM stations cannot be used as, for example, like an LP1 or LP2 station. You're not actually required to send the encoding, the turkey caller. You're not required to send that, even though the boxes are designed to do it anyway. But, obviously you are required to forward alerts that you do receive. And the problem is the expense with this equipment. And the fact that, you get these, you're getting these alerts already through your LP station, through your lead primary. And that, if you're going to be getting an alert, yeah, you may get a cap alert. Now, whether your lead primary may take it or not, that's a different story. But I don't see any reason why LPFM stations cannot just use the lead primary station over the air as their source for EAS, therefore eliminating the need to have to rely on CAP, IPAWS. And if the message is going over the lead primary station, the station you get your feed from, then the message has already been authenticated and there's not a national security issue. And with that, we don't have to worry about memorandums of agreement with FEMA that those who are developing equipment for EAS have to deal with. And therefore, older hand-me-down equipment that can still pick up, that can still pick up the cap encoding over the air, the turkey callers, can still work. As long as the appropriate FIPS codes are in there, and as long as the appropriate alert type codes are in there. And, every time that FEMA changes something, we're going to, these stations are going to get hit. And that's one of the problems here. The other problem that I've had, I've had stations from the West that tell me about this, is that the alerts are too general because they're at the county level. They're not at a local level. So if you're in a large county like San Bernardino, Riverside, Los Angeles, the alerts that you get, the very few alerts that you get are very regional based. Because if something is going on in an area that is in the same county but separated by 2 mountain ranges from the rest of the area, do you really think they're going to put out emergency alerts on that? The wireless alert system for the phones is much better where it comes to that, because they can specify a polygon and say, okay, only send the alert within this general area. Only send it within a municipality. And that is very effective. The system that's used for EAS, especially if they really want LPFM stations to use CAP, then we need a polygon-based system like that for, and we need to have more alerts coming through CAP. I monitor CAP coming out of here. I monitor CAP coming out of Southern California. And I'll tell you, I rarely ever see anything that comes through CAP that doesn't come through any other way. We did have an Amber Alert here a few days ago. That came through CAP. Ventura County, when the Easy Fire was going on, they did send alerts. They did send a couple of alerts through CAP. And that was it. They need to, if they want LPFM stations to utilize this, number one, they need to give us a way of being able to do it without having to cost an arm and a leg. That's the problem right now that we have with EAS, is it does cost an arm and a leg to here. And for an LPFM being at the end of the food chain and being so hyper local, what is the return on the investment? What, that 1 in a zillion chance that somebody's going to drop the bomb? That's basically what we're preparing for. Is, so long, Mom, I'm off to drop the bomb. Now don't wait up for me. Thank you, Tom Lehrer. So yeah, I'm going on a tangent here. But yeah, we definitely, if you read the comments in 19.3 and we'll talk about that. Over-the-air EAS is subject to spoofing in current implementation. Yeah, So is hacking open iPaws. We saw that happen a few years ago with the zombies. I brought up the zombies in our reply comments. Yes, the reply comments to 19193. If you've not had a chance to read them, they talk about a lot of things that we talk about. Zombies. We talk about Tom and Jerry. We talk about Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. And we talk about Boris and Bullwinkle. Basically, in response to how stupid the National Association of Broadcasters is being. But you know, the funny part about this whole thing, you know, I've been waiting and thinking, okay, you know, the comments were due on Monday. And normally, if somebody files comments, um, they're manually handled by the office of the secretary and such. And usually, if you file them in the early morning, you'll usually see them in the late afternoon come into the system. If you file it by the end of the day, it's usually a day, maybe two. You know, when the network neutrality proceeding was going on, it was taking several days for comments, even in other proceedings, to reach the comment filing system. And, you know, so we're thinking, okay, you know, but also too, what anybody could do is if they're in DC and they want to file comments, they can still file them the old-fashioned way. They can either mail them in, or they can actually go down to 12th Street, go to the FCC's offices, go through security, first floor. There's a secretary's window for hand filings. You give them the hand filing, let them know what it's for, and they'll file it. And a lot of comment filings that way a lot of them are done, are still done by hand filing. And so we're thinking, okay, they hand filed it. Okay, here we are on Thursday morning, and Mr. Nab has still not filed. Did the LPFMers really scare him that hard that they didn't know what to say? And especially in reply comments where we called them out on the hypocrisy of the NAB, talking about how they're making excuses why LP 250 shouldn't be done. And when they run out of excuses, they go back to an old argument that the FCC has already debunked. The FCC, the NAB does not care about interference. We saw that in the NPRM that was eliminating the second adjacent, was going to do the second adjacent waivers for LPFM. We saw that happen. And in that proceeding, and we called this out in reply comments, we said, because the NAB, the NAB does not wants to see a lot of restrictions on LPFM stations with second adjacent waivers. Yet they have no problem when the same exact procedures are being done for translators. That right there, that exposed the NAB for what their real agenda item is, and that is to silence anybody who would even dare come into the same sandbox as Beasley and Hubbard and Saga. They're the ones, those are the ones that the NAB is defending. Not as much iHeart or Cumulus as much as it is for these, I will call them second tier owners like Hubbard, Saga, and such. And Beasley. Here's the interesting thing is Beasley did make an ex parte in 19193, talking with somebody and talking with people and staff and saying how it was going to cause interference and stuff. And guess what? They didn't file comments. They did not join the party. They came in on the side door, said, "Yeah, we don't like it," and ran off. That's the fun part about it. So now we are on we're going to have to be on an ex parte blitz now. So, your LP 250 stories are still relevant. Please get them to me. How you think that this, keeping in mind that not everybody's going to be able to upgrade to LP 250. Especially now with all these new translators and everything popping in there. But we have other ideas. There's other things on the plate there. There's FM translator relief. But, it's never too late, because what we can do is we can take your stories and we can actually go to D.C. Yes, actually physically travel to D.C., which is about 3 hours away from here. And right now we do have a little bit of budget for ex partes. So over these next couple months, barring the weather, we'll probably be making a trip or two to D.C. to work on this. So I would really be interested in your LP 250 stories and how you think the stations are going to help, because that way we can actually say, hey, here's a station in so and so city, and right now they're having building penetration issues. They've got an area that's about 4 miles out, that's in the same county, that's in the same municipality of some kind, the same political boundaries, and they can't reach them. And this will help in that situation. I mean, those are basically the arguments, because right now the idea is we need to get LP 250 back on the plate, and we need to get that in there as a further notice of proposed rulemaking. So that way we have a full and complete record, and that way the NAB can spout their LCRA arguments why it shouldn't happen, and and the FCC could do the full review of the situation as they promised to do in the 6th report and order. The FCC still has some work to do. We've got a new division chief since then. And, and again, this is why it's very important that we also watch the political scene and we watch the administration. Right now, we do not have a very friendly administration within the FCC for handling this kind of thing. And this is another reason why I want to put a little bit of a holdout on LP 250, because of the fact that we have O'Reilly, who is not very LPFM friendly at all. He has demonstrated that multiple times, that he is not a friend of LPFM. And he tends to be one of those that equates LPFM with pirates. Chairman Pai, if he can come up with a good movie pun, then perhaps. Why do you think we wrote the Mr. Nab story? Why do you think in the reply comments we compared what the NAB is doing to LPFM with a Tom and Jerry cartoon? Okay? Do you understand that maybe we were trying to speak to Chairman Pai in a language that he understands? Jessica Rosenworcel is our best friend right now. I will say that. As far as I can see, she is the one that has demonstrated the most interest in our service. And Jeffrey Starks is also one that's definitely on the good side. REC, first of all, I want to make sure you all realize that REC is apolitical. What I talk about in an REC channel is going to be, apolitical. But I will say also too that LPFM is a bipartisan issue. LCRA was bipartisan, and when over 50% of LPFM stations are faith-based, there's a good chance that a lot of those are from the right side of the aisle. Some things to think about, and when we march in there, that's what we go with. And so right now we've got to, so obviously we'll be watching the election. We won't be endorsing anybody, but we'll be watching the election very closely. And, because that could drive, whoever's elected could drive how, what direction the FCC could shift in. And, I mean, if I can get Brendan Carr or somebody like that. Brendan Carr is kind of the stale duck here. He's the one I sometimes say, yeah, he just, you got, when it comes to broadcasting, he's basically twiddling his thumbs on this issue. He really doesn't have much to say about broadcasting, where Jessica does, and of course you've got Michael O'Reilly on the in the majority, who's just like gung ho on the Pirates and really doesn't care. He's the one that's siding with New Jersey and such. So anywho, let's see. We have questions here. Let's see what we're saying. Hello, Jose from Puerto Rico. Hello and good morning. Let's see. Someone did message me on radio message boards about WLIX-LP. Your statement was false about WLIX-LP. That's for the FCC to decide. Let me tell you what's going on with that. REC did file an informal objection yesterday against the assignment of WLIX-LP. In that proceeding, they're asking for to transfer this LPFM station from one organization to this organization called RCN Ministry. And anytime that a assignment of license is filed in LPFM, I do an investigation. I look at every single one. And one of the key things is that no matter what the validity of any other statements that were made, the first key thing that needs to be resolved is the fact that the organization RCN Ministry is not a recognized corporation. The FCC does require that in order to be a non-commercial licensee, you have to be first recognized as a nonprofit corporation in your state, and that is done through the filing with the state as a nonprofit corporation. I have a nonprofit corporation for any future non-commercial educational license ventures that I may get into in the future. Every LPFM station had to go through the process, and basically it's going through a state, and it doesn't even have to be your own state. It can be any state. A lot of folks do it through Delaware because you can do it online. You pay a fee and it's done. And you have to, so you have to have articles of incorporation that are filed with the state as a nonprofit. And for RCN Ministry, we did a lot of research on that. We checked several states. We checked all the surrounding states. We checked Connecticut. We checked New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We also checked Delaware, since Delaware is a popular state for incorporation. Nothing. We checked the IRS. There's no 501 tax-exempt filing. Now, I want to make sure that you all realize, regardless of that, an LPFM does not have to be a 501. You do not have to have an IRS designation to be an LPFM licensee. But we check there too, because if they are a 501, that right there is enough to demonstrate that they are a nonprofit organization. So we were unable. So basically, if RCN Ministry can produce somewhere in any state that they are a corporation, a non-profit corporation under that name, RCN Ministry, if they can show that in a state, and that filing was done prior to the filing of the assignment application, okay, they're free and clear on that piece. Then that goes into the more complex issue of familial interest. And we're not able to figure out who this family member is, whether it's a brother, a son, where they are, where they are on the family tree. And the FCC does have specific rules regarding family members. And, they consider a family member as either a husband-wife, they consider it as a parent-child, or as a sibling relationship, a brother or sister. And when those come up, the FCC can take some additional, measures to assure that they're not using their familial interests in order to circumvent the rules. And in this case, the very strict one-to-a-customer rule that LPFM has. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, this requires some additional investigation, especially considering that you go to their Facebook page, the first thing that you see on there is a graphic. Their oldest item that's posted on there is a graphic of their full power operations, including stations that this Radio Cantico Nuevo or whatever it is actually owns. And that's the same organization that's getting the donation from Connoisseur Media for WALK. So the issue is this, what's the connection? What is the connection there? Because obviously they've got evidence. They've got evidence that there is a connection. And what we don't want to see happen is we don't want to see this LPFM station turn into a translator of their radio network. That's not what this service is about. Now, the other issue that comes up in this thing is over previous control. One thing that we did note in that case was the station did go silent. And when it went silent, the silent STA was signed by one of the original folks that was, on that license. One of the original parties to that application. When that came back on, it came back on with the restoral, and the restoral was signed by a person who is also involved in this Contico organization that has a bunch of full service stations, and they're trying to get more. Looks like they're trying to get some of the old stations from Paulino Bernal Ministries. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of shadow ownership going on, suspected shadow ownership going on in there, and that's what we want to get to the bottom of. The idea of this is it's all about the integrity of LPFM, and that's why we do this. Just because you have an LPFM designator, just as if you're an LP 100 class of service, that does not make you above the law, and that does make you subject to scrutiny here. This is not what we wanted LPFM for. LPFM was to bring new voices into communities, not to be used as extensions of existing broadcasters, done so in a manner that would circumvent the rules. And that's the position right now on them. So we are taking a hardline position on them. And the idea is that we want the audio division, we want the media bureau to look further into this case. We are not going after the WALK transfer. We're not going after that one at all. We're not going after any of the full power holdings at all. We're only concerned right now about that LPFM station. That LPFM station should not be in a control by a full service entity, either direct or indirect. There are ways of involving full service stations and LPFMs in a way that are more legal than that. As long as you have you have a separate organization that that's running that, and like I tell people, I said the best way to prove that is if you're going to simulcast another LPFM station, let's say an LPFM station. If you're going to simulcast another LPFM station, at least dedicate a good chunk of programming on the simulcasting station to their own programming and have it run separately. That's the way. That's a good way to prove that other organization is their own and they just happen to borrow programming. In this case, the LPFM station is, we are suspecting a shadow ownership here. And we are suspecting that it's a family member of the names that escape my mind right now, of the folks that are licensed, that are the Cantico ministry licensee, and those who are obtaining WALK. So that's where the issue is. This is normal routine. We've been, we just recently settled a shadow ownership case in San Antonio, and in that case it was a third party coming in and wanting in trying to impress somebody local to be able to take over their LPFM station to operate as an extension of their ministry on a full service station out of town. And we were able to get them to talk them out of the deal, and that was a good outcome. So that's pretty much what we've got going on there. So yeah, the situation right now with WLIX and on Long Island, yeah, we are definitely, that's one of the many informal objections that we have filed over the years against LPFM assignments. And it's all about integrity, and it's all about assuring that the one to the customer rule is being enforced. And if there is a full service shadow owner, that's wrong. And that's the reason why we do it the way we do it. Simple as that. Simple as that. Let's see. I think we covered all the. Any other chat comments or anything like that? I know I've been rambling. We're coming up top of the hour. Just want to make sure there isn't anything else that we need to talk about. Let's see. One of the things that we do have coming up that you might be interested in is on the 21st. Is a symposium on the current and future trends in the radio and television industries. There's a whole bunch of people that were invited, of course. Nobody from LPFM, nobody from the NFCB, nobody from anybody from the LPFM sector or anybody like that was invited. But still worth a watch. We'll be carrying this on our Facebook Live at the REC Networks channel on November 21st. It's Thursday. And it'll start at 10 a.m. We'll do an REC Live during the lunch, sometime during the lunch break. So we'll be back here and doing a Ramble Fest, for that one. So now we'll be back here next Thursday, and next Thursday we'll be here on YouTube. We'll be doing that, but there's the information for you there, and so you might you might want to check that out. So with that, again, any other questions, feel free to dump them in the chat right now. I'm looking. I need a cough button. I need a cough button for this thing. Oh, in case you're ever wondering what I'm using to switch things around, I've shown this a couple times before, but this is a neat little box. It is the Elgato Stream Deck. This is what we use to do the video switching. So like for example, when I come over and I want to bring up one of the slates, like here's the renewals and there's the that, I use this box. It works really great. I love it, and it interfaces with OBS. If you do any video streaming, it is definitely something to look forward to. It's better than using a keyboard, because if you're trying to do something and you're trying to do something on the sly, sometimes you may miss the key, you may hit the wrong key and stuff. This is actually very tactile, has separation between the buttons. The display behind the buttons changes as you push the buttons. It's a really neat tool. Okay, nothing seen in the chat, so I'm going to jump on out of here for now. And, we'll chat another time. We'll see you next Thursday. If you have any questions anytime, feel free to give me a call at 202-621-2355 or 1-844-REC-LPFM. You can't forget that phone number. 1-844, toll-free, REC-LPFM. Or visit the website, recnet.com. Email lpfm@recnet.com. And with that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.